Let's get it. This is Life's Essential Ingredients with Jeff and a Mike, where we hope to inform, inspire, and transform lives, one essential ingredient at a time. Welcome to the show. Oh, yeah. I get excited for every show because I love to talk to people. I love to learn. And then I also love to just think back. And our guest today, John Sayers, is one of those people who has really made a big impact on my life. Personally, I look at him as a brother. And so I'm just so excited. I'm kind of like a little kid in a candy store right now. I'm not kidding. I'm kind of bouncing on my chair. We just played our little drum line. All three of us are hoopers, so we're ready to jump up and touch the net now. I don't even know if I can get the net, but we're ready to show our 1-inch vertical. My Pasho is in the house in Pedro. Pashito, how are you today, baby?
Asha, doing outstanding and looking forward to hearing what our good friend John has to say. If you guys aren't ready for it, watch out for the energy, man. It's very contagious.
I'll just let my Pasho say hello to our guest today, John, and then I'll introduce John.
John, how you doing? Good to see you again, brother. It's been a while.
Absolutely my pleasure. Both you guys. I'm excited. I'm doing a little rocking on my own, so let's get after it.
Yeah. And actually, I got to say one more thing real quick before we get in the show. I want to say thanks to all the listeners. I mean, it's kind of crazy. I think this is like the maybe 12th episode or so. And Noon, you're not gonna know this, but there's listeners in Russia, France, Japan, the UK, all over the United States. And Mike and I just want to say thanks for tuning in. We have not done a good job communicating with you. So if you want to reach out to us, and again, Life's Essential Ingredients is part of C4 Leaders. C4 Leaders is a grassroots nonprofit out of Northern California. It's focused on building community. You can reach out to me, Jeff at c4leaders.org, and we would love to hear from you. With that, let's get down. At forward, a 6'8" sophomore wearing number 42 comes in averaging 22 and 11. John Claudius Sayers IV. Few things about John: husband to Cristina, father to Addison, Harlow, and Keone. And who knows how many dogs at this point, and we'll come to that. Son to John III and Carol, brother to Jennifer, friend to many. Words that describe John: talented, friendly, funny, serious, deep, loyal, smart, big-hearted, people-oriented, leader, great communicator, shooter, not much of a defender, surfer, supporter of all people, teacher, coach, and my brother. John went to my rival high school, Bellarmine, and received a full scholarship to University of San Diego, where he dominated on the court, got freshman of the year. Then he started smoking some stuff, transferred to UCSB, where he did get to beat the #1 team in the nation back in 1990. Any hoop fans out there, that was the real deal UNLV team with Greg Anthony, Stacey Ogman, George Ackles, which I still have that picture that John signed and gave LJ, Larry Johnson. That team was ridiculous. John's team gave them the only loss they received that whole season. UNLV did go on to winning the national championship, only lost by UCSB. UCSB qualified for their only win in the NCAA tournament. Again, John had a big hand in that. They beat Houston, and then they gave Michigan State the business and took that game down to the wire. After graduating, John, he did get his degree in history, and he started teaching. And doing incredible life skill camps. And we'll get into all this in a lot more detail. Then he went into sales for a little bit, and he's currently the director of sales and marketing for Superior Foods. John, welcome to the show.
So the intro, though much appreciated, 22 and 11. maybe my dream was 22, because that meant I got to shoot a lot. The 11, never going to happen. Maybe 11 fouls in 3 games. So everything else, nice intro, and excited, like I said earlier, to just be here. And when you both asked me to participate in this program and do a podcast, number one, it's my first one I've ever done. But looking at life's essential ingredients and kind of what you guys are trying to provide for your listeners, what I figured I would do was give you a little background on myself, share with you how that background kind of impacted who I am today, and then share a very personal story with you, and then kind of just end it with just kind of where I see myself today, and kind of how all those experiences shaped my view not only on humanity but what people can and should do with their lives. So that's kind of my idea, boys.
Man, I love it. And you can see his title, director, because he comes on our show, My Pod Show, and he's directing. And so when you're working with the director, then I kind of just sit back. Director, would you mind if I put out the thought of the day, but I don't want to interrupt your groove and we can just get into your thing and we roll? Or I can give you a thought of the day and then we roll.
I would love to hear the thought of the day, because maybe that will direct me in a different direction.
No way. What you got is good. And it is going to be one interesting show. Like I said, I'm hyped. So your thought of the day, and this took me a long time because I could have went in so many different directions. And again, John and I met our sophomore year of high school playing against each other. I wouldn't call it a scrap, but there was a loose ball. We both dove on it. We started rolling around the floor. No blows were thrown. But it was like after that time where I was like, man, I'm going to be seeing this guy. And then we just started hooping together and going all over the place, which I'm sure this stuff will come up. But in thinking about you and our relationship, man, this was a tough one. I'm not going to lie. And then I just went back to those early times, and I'm sure you're going to get into this. But this is from the father of dub poetry, Moody. Baruch. Remember some of that?
Yes.
This is a little bit deep, and it's a short one. I write a poem and feel that my poem can create, can awaken, change. And so that was the one thought, and it's deep. And then I got to go in. I just couldn't pick just that one, but a little bit of the same kind of vibe where I feel is your personality. And it's from Bob Marley's Redemption song. And emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. No one but ourselves can free our minds. And I guess, I'm going to jump to that last one. Then I'm going to let you get going and interpret those. But that was one impact that you always had on me. You were so open-minded, so down to earth, so kind of versed in worldly kind of what was going on about the world. And then you wanted to take action and shape young people's minds. And so I just want to say thanks for
what? when you were giving those beautiful thoughts of the day, I like both of them a ton, but something in the back of my mind was killing me. Denny's parking lot. Diesel Rabbit. That I don't know what was on the soundtrack, but that flashed in my mind, and we'll touch maybe on that later. But that both those quotes to me, I've always hoped that if any of us can make an impact on the world at a grand level, I don't know what that would feel like. I've never thought of myself as being anybody other than ordinary, but I did know that just being a good human being and being open-minded, you can make people whoever you come in contact on a given day, whatever the circumstance, particularly all of us, none of us are 5'10". When we go out in public, people are going to kind of go, who is that guy? So we have a choice. We can either be open-minded and be positive and awaken that change, kind of like what you said in the first quote, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you can shut things off and make the world a little less of a welcoming place. So I thought both those quotes to me were kind of cool. And then the doggone Denny's thing popped in my head and it would have ruined everything. So I kept it as serious as I could.
Yes. Yes. I love hearing your thoughts on those. And I think that's what the world needs now, though. And yeah, none of us is gonna change the world, but I do think changing the world starts with one person at a time, and doing ordinary actions that probably now are no longer ordinary. And so just getting back to doing, what you do so well. And I think that is just be a good friend. And this is going to sound however it's going to come across. But again, in thinking about this show, there was a student when I was coaching at Vacaville High School. I was coaching girls, and Haley Holbein, her boyfriend, was the quarterback, this young man named Coleman Christensen. And they were to be married. Unfortunately, Coleman was at UNR. Yep. He had a seizure and he died in his sleep. And he was, I think, 22 years old. And I was like, that's a funeral that I have to go to, because not that I knew him that well, because he would just bounce in and out of the gym during my practice, and he would try and dunk and disrupt practice. But you just loved him, so you couldn't say anything. He was just one of those guys that just had a get out of jail free card, regardless of what he was going to do. But to tie this to you, John, is at his funeral, he had, I don't know, probably 20 people, young men, come up and speak, and every last one of them started with, "I'm Coleman's best friend." And it gives me goosebumps just thinking about that right now, because for him, number one, to make each of his friends feel like they're his best friend was just incredible. Yep. And John and I were really good friends growing up, are still good friends, but don't get to talk to him on a regular basis. But you are one of those people that when you are around somebody, you just make up for lost time, and you make them feel special. And again, I don't know how you do it, but it's definitely one of your essential ingredients. And we thank you for that. And everybody that's involved in your life is fortunate to have you for that. Now, don't get a big head, because you said you wanted to direct the show. So I'm turning my mic off. I'm going to be quiet. I'll put in my 2 cents. My Pasho, like he likes to say, is the eye candy of the show. And you're looking good today, Pasho. He'll jump in and throw some things in, but you take it away.
So number one out of the three of us, Mr. Pedro is the eye candy. You're number two. I'm number three. Just to set it straight. Like if we were lined up and there was a ranking system, that's the order. Just to be clear.
I don't think that was ever in doubt, by the way, but go on.
Said like a man that knows it. So it's to start. I think that you when you talked about our friendship and maybe complimented me on how you perceive that I make people feel, right? I have no clue I'm doing that. Just to be straight up. And I think when I look at who I am, you got to kind of go back to where I came from, right? And so, and Mike, this will probably be some new information for you that may or may not make the picture you have of me a little clearer, a little more shocking, a little funnier. I'm not sure, but we'll give it a go. I moved all the time. Was born in Southern California, a place called Van Nuys. Lived there for a couple years. Moved from there to Hawaii. From Hawaii, moved to Chicago. From Chicago, moved to Northern California or Central California. During that period, my parents moved over to Europe. So basically, I moved every 2 to 4 years of my life. And so that had a pretty huge impact on me. And kind of think about it. You're restarting your life every 2 to 4 years, meeting people, fitting in, being uncomfortable. So I learned very early that being uncomfortable was actually kind of normal. Um, and because of my size and because I was good in sports, I was very fortunate that I never went from these different places. Think about it: Southern California to Hawaii. Hawaii at a time when the Howleys that lived on the island had only been a state for like 12 or 14 years. A lot of Hawaiian nationalism, right? So I'm a white guy on the islands, right, trying to fit in a very territorial place where, frankly, and I don't disagree with it, there's some sacred lands and there's some roots there that go very deep and much deeper than a tourist or someone that flew over from the mainland said, it's my home, right? So I learned at a very early age what it felt and what it meant to be an outsider, right? You go from, from that, where I adopted a lot of the awesome traits of being able to walk around barefoot, never having to wear pants, and probably the most formal shirt I had a collar on it. Fast forward, go to Chicago, 76. No, yeah, 76. Middle of the winter, middle of school year. Never been in the snow. I'm out in our front yard in my surf trunks on the first snowstorm doing a snow angel. And we have neighbors coming over and asking my parents, is your son normal? Can we expect some issues here? Because what he's doing, it's cold. And they just said, no, he's never seen the snow and never been in it. He's excited, right? And so, we lived in an area in Chicago that was about, I think, 20 minutes outside of downtown, and was exposed to a lot of small town atmosphere stuff, but also became very well aware of what the South Side of Chicago meant, being very close to it, but not in it, right? And then you fast forward and we move to Los Altos, right? And then after that, we moved to Danville. After Danville, my parents moved over to a place called Richmond on Surrey, which is in England, and then moved back to Pleasanton. And so, I think what I'd share with all those moves, other than that I became very comfortable being uncomfortable, was the following. My parents raised me. If you saw, Jeff, you knew where we lived in Los Altos. I think you've been out where I lived in Danville. Where we lived in Chicago was nicer than where we lived in Winnetka. Where we lived in Hawaii was a nice area. I was never brought up thinking that we were anything more than a working class family, even though now when I look back, every town we lived in is the exact opposite of that. It is one of the nicer areas of those areas. And so I'm grateful for my parents of raising me to not have any arrogance around a town or an area of the town that I live in. And that, I had to work my butt off. Anything I wanted, I had to earn money to pay for. My parents didn't buy everything for me. And so my work ethic was ingrained. And if I look back and you go to Los Altos today, there's not a single house there that's under like $2.5–3 million. You go to Winnetka, where I grew up, $3.5 million houses. And so it's interesting. It's ingrained in me that we had the ability to live in those places, and my dad worked very hard, but he never let us, or my mom never let us, understand that we were any different than anybody else at any time. And so that was important to me. And then I kind of wrapped it into what I call a culture connection. In Winnetka, when I moved there from Hawaii, my first friend was an adopted kid that was the only African American in the whole school, probably maybe in the whole town. And I remember being taught about Abraham Lincoln, about the Civil War, and I created a poster that if I had it today, it would be framed, and I kept it in my dorm room. I had it in my house until it just literally fell apart. But it was about an 8-foot wide poster, about 4 feet wide, 4 feet tall, and the quote was what Booker T. Washington might have said. And each student was supposed to pick a quote and of somebody that was from that time period of what they might have said. And my quote that I had on that poster was, don't let the white man put you down. Be proud of who you are and what color you are. And this is probably in 1977. And the figures that were on the poster were a white stick figure holding hands with a black stick figure holding the hands with a white stick figure across the whole poster. And I did that in like 1977 or whatever it was. I remember, I think my first fight that I ever got in was in Oahu when we walked down to the public school down below the hill, and we're just playing on the playground, and Hawaiian kids, and we walk down the hill and they go, what are you doing here? And they had a 6-year-old kid, brother, whatever it was. They pushed him over to me and we scrapped. And I remember going, this is stupid. You might call it a rite of passage, but the idea that a culture or a people have to automatically make judgments on each other for whatever reason just is a foreign concept to me. And I think that the fact that I was able to move, even though that change was uncomfortable, I was exposed to some very interesting parts of our country's history to absorb that, right? I don't even remember talking to my parents about some of this stuff. I remember being able to play in some basketball camps as a kid in Chicago and going to the South Side and feeling and looking at the talent going, what am I doing playing where I might have been 9 years old, but I'm going, hey, Winnetka's not where I should be playing. I need to be playing here. I don't think I ever got to, but I had an awareness that there was a bigger world out there that had opportunities that had nothing to do with the town you came from, how much money your parents had, any of that stuff. So,
hey, Noon, I want to interrupt real quick because you're saying so much, and it's amazing. But first, I remember your artwork that you had. It made a big impression on me, and yeah, it's a little bit sad that you still don't have that, because that would be one of your most treasured
ever
items for sure. And that would be an interesting conversation for you to have with yourself of what was going on in your life at that time, to where you were like, hey, I don't have space for this. But that's probably for another show. But I want to get into just real quick a couple things that you were saying of how some of the ignorance that we have in our country, and how you just don't understand, nor do Mike or I understand how we can have some of these viewpoints. And one of the key things that you're saying is because you wouldn't have that, because you felt it and you got to experience all the emotion and see all these different groups of people for who they were, which were people no different than you, coming from a whole different culture and space and part of the country and everything. And again, that's always something that's been reflected in our time together, of just how you treat all people. So yeah, I wanted to have those two points that really jumped out at me. But Director, you keep going. I'm gonna be quiet.
So I think what you just said, Jazzy, is a good kind of segue into a part of my life that really cemented some of my beliefs, and so I think both of you guys remember Ronnie Reese, right? The 7'1" kid, played Santa Clara. He went to a rival junior high. I went to Cupertino Junior High. He went to Kennedy. He got asked to go play in East Palo Alto, which is at one point in the mid 80s, it was the murder capital of our of our country. Very small, across the freeway town from Palo Alto, which is where Stanford is, right? So right on the bay, but on the 101 on the ocean side. And so he got asked to play with a team there, and we were hanging out, doing whatever kids do, playing hoops or whatever. And he said, "Hey, I want to take you down there." So I went down there, and it was a place called Annetta Harris Community Center. It's in East Menlo Park / East Palo Alto. Jazzy, you've actually been there with me.
Oh yeah.
And the guy that ran the community center was Aaron Johnson, and he had more impact on me than any human being, probably outside my dad or my grandfather. And so when he was on his deathbed, I was up, I was friends with him on Facebook, and my daughter was playing some travel softball in the Bay Area. And I made a choice to go see him because I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to see him again. And so, you pull up to his house, you get out, and you're not sure what you're going to see. And you got this weird feeling inside because this individual's had an amazing impact on you, has helped shape you. Didn't really probably know even at that time how much so. And you're going to go in and try to have a talk with him. And so he was not able to talk because he was paralyzed, but he could manipulate his chair and write some stuff on a pad. And so basically what I tried to share with him was how much he meant to me. I ended up breaking down and doing it probably not the justice I felt. And so I left. I texted his wife and said, "Hey, I really appreciate you opening your home and letting me see Aaron. I just wanted to let him know that he meant a lot to me." She goes, "No, his visit was he's very happy you came over and meant a lot to him." I don't know if it was a weekend or what it was, but I had some time to think, and I wanted to give him a tribute. And so I wrote a letter to him that I posted to him, and it ended up being, I think, probably 7 or 10 days before he passed. And at his service, his whole family just thanked me for writing what I wrote because they felt that it did him justice. And then, people came out of the woodwork and commenting because you'll hear, I'm a white guy in a predominantly minority setting, and that impact was profound. So I'll read this. I may get a little emotional, but it's the only way I can do it justice.
Yep. Appreciate it.
So this is to Aaron Johnson. I want you to forever know the positive impact that you have had on me. After our recent visit, I thought that I could not put into words the appreciation I have for you and what you taught me. I'm going to try to do that out of complete respect for you and so that you fully know how I feel. And in the hopes that somehow, in some way, these words will find themselves into the hearts and minds of the next generation of young men that can and will carry on your legacy. I'm going to try to communicate the 3 main things that I carry with me today that you not only built a foundation for, but I simply cannot get out of the fiber of who I am and how I interact with others. Here's the simple facts. I'm a 46-year-old white guy, so that's 6 years ago. A guy that in nearly 99.9% of situations, the spikes in the parking lot lay flat down and I roll right through with no resistance, no prejudgment, and full acceptance. I want to make this very clear to those folks that read this. I know who I am and where I've come from. And Aaron has had more formative impact on my thought processes, my inner beings, my views on the world and man, and the potential that exists in all of us than anyone in my 46 years of life. The first thing that you showed me was commitment. You took a white kid from Los Altos at 15 years old and fully and totally committed to me. In a day and age now where parents pay money for specialized training and skill work in sports, you simply asked me to work hard and that you would work hard with me. You actually demanded it. You kicked my ass, challenged me to push myself. I would not be soft on your watch. You did this for no charge and from Kelly Park, East Palo Alto. I'd never in my life had someone so freely and fully tell me that they had confidence in me, that they believed me, and that I could do something by simply working hard. You instilled in me that there are no shortcuts, and that if I set goals and work my ass off, I could achieve. You also made me look forward to running in the backfields of Kelly Park for hours. He was a dude that rode around with Ronnie and I in a golf cart around a field and would sit there with a bullhorn and just talk smack to us. Then we had to go practice for 3 hours, but he'd make us run 5 miles, 6 miles, 7 miles before practice because he's like, Ronnie, you don't run right. Watch the way he runs. John, you got no stamina. And so it was just constantly. And why? You talk smack to me and Ronnie on every lap, and that made us forget about what we're doing. And that made you more than a coach to me. Plus, I did not want to let you down. If you were willing to show that level of commitment to me, the least I could do was reciprocate. I am eternally grateful that you showed me what commitment is, and I take this with me every day. The next thing you showed me was teamwork. I was a decent player and could play a little, but you made me earn my role on your teams and earn my playing time. I remember showing up to my first practice at Kelly Park. It was Roy Robinson, James Davis, Denard White, Ronnie, Raymond Wolfloke, and others. You told them that I was going to play on the team. You then never put me into practice situations, and when you did, you broke me down big time. You'd ask me if I could handle it, if I wanted it, if I could fit in with my teammates. This went on for the first few weeks. You finally pulled me aside and told me why you were doing what you were doing with me. You said you were making me better for myself and for the team. More importantly, the other guys in the team had been busting their asses for weeks and I was new. How could you put me in a starting position without having to earn it and without earning the respect and trust of my teammates? I remember thinking this is a bunch of BS, but I hung with it and I worked hard. I remember thinking, I believe I took James' spot starting at some point. Yet James never made me feel uncomfortable, and I like to think that we pushed each other and that I earned his trust as well as my other teammates. Kids these days have to be the star when they have not earned it or deserved it. In my opinion, every player on every team, no matter how good they are or how good they or their parents think they are, should have to sit their asses down every once in a while and learn to be good teammates. I want to thank you for showing me what real teamwork is, and I've carried this through my personal and professional life. This third one is probably where I'll get maybe a little emotional. The third thing you instilled in me was community. This is the most lasting impact you had on me for a period of time in my life, early high school and then post-college. Kelly Park in East Palo Alto was my home away from home. I felt accepted. I felt validated. I felt I belonged. I felt I could take risks. How and why did I get to experience this? I had a stronger sense of community in a shorter amount of time than I've had anywhere else. I guarantee you something. You reverse the roles and take a kid from East Menlo Park and you bring them to where I lived, which I did, or you bring them to where I live today in Aptos, and the acceptance that was afforded me would not have been afforded to the kid that I brought. And it's a simple fact. It's absolutely true. And I say this, a simple fact, it's a fact, has been a compass in my life. I cannot stand inequality or injustice based on where someone's from or how they look. What you did for me and so others with your words, your dedication, your time, your accountability, all made Kelly Park a community that I have missed, but it is always with me. And as that has shaped the type of man I am today. I sincerely hope that this letter more fully communicates the positive and long-standing impact you've had on me and my life. The ideals of commitment, teamwork, and community are meaningful to me because of you. And I hope that who I am and what I am carries at least a small part of your impact to other places and people. Much love, much respect, much admiration, John Sayers. So you go from living in all those places to taking a kid from Los Altos into an area where most people from Los Altos were scared shitless to go. And it became a place where my mom and dad would come in. My dad would be a guest coach. They were welcomed as if they were, because they knew who I was, and I was part of the fabric for that period of time. The acceptance was just automatic, and it just shocked me at that age to think anybody from that community center watching a game at the store we stopped to get Cokes or whatever, we bring them to Los Altos, which is like 8 miles away. People are calling the cops on them just for freaking walking the street or showing up in the neighborhood. So, that obviously had a very big impact on me. And then I looked, kind of for the essentials for life is what has this done for me, and kind of how have these experiences or exposure, what has it meant for me to now be at 52? The biggest one to me is I could care less what somebody does for a living, because it has zero correlation to the quality of person they are. So you can be a movie director, you can be a bus driver, don't care. If you're a good person, I want to be around you. And it's a universal truth. What you do for a living doesn't mean you're better than anybody else. And no one's going to ever convince me that that's something that means an athlete, a politician, all these things that get all these days with all the social media and all the buzz. Don't care. Are they good people? They're a good person. I probably want to follow them or see them or talk to them. If they're not, I have no time for them. Just like, there's people that impact that may not have what society perceives as, impactful roles. I don't believe that. That's one thing that I live my life with. The other one is I can't say it enough. One person or a small group of people never ever has in my mind represented a whole race, a whole town, a whole people ever. So if there a couple guys do a good thing, it doesn't mean that everybody's good. If a couple guys do bad things, it doesn't mean everybody's bad. It's a small sample size. It's not fair to put it on everybody. And then, to me, I would say that no matter where you're from or what you do or what your genetics are, let's call it, we all have shit that we're scared of. We all have shit that we're proud of. We all have problems. We all have opportunities. It's universal. So there's a oneness to the fact that, that's what's there. And I'll share one last story that really shaped me. Was my middle daughter was sexually assaulted her sophomore year on campus at Aptos High School by football players, and we chose to support her mentally and the health, and to fight for justice behind the scenes versus doing it in the public eye. And it was the right move, and it showed me that we could have been litigious. We could have done things to a football program at a school that would have been very bad for the school, and we would have won. But what would that have done for our daughter? So we just told the school, here's what we expect you to do with the students. Here's what we're going to do. And you need to give us the support for our daughter that helps her be as whole as she can from a situation, as unfortunate as it was, could have been avoided if the administration, the football team, et cetera, all had some accountability, right? And so I'm sharing that because it goes along with kind of my life's essential ingredient is we need to take care of the people that are closest to us. And we all do that. So that's not better or worse than anybody else. And we get to live and enjoy, just to me, being a good person. That's the essential ingredient to me, is how do I wake up each day and be considered a good dude. So I guess that's my story and what I kind of wanted to share. I don't know if it made any sense or if it didn't make sense, but sharing it and being able to go back in time and then try to go forward, particularly with you two yo-yos, is very impactful for me. And I thank you, because you asked, you want to help people. Well, by doing this, you help me be able to kind of look at myself and kind of see if some of the things that I felt were important to me, am I actually really doing them, and where did that come from, right? So.
Oh, man. I'm pretty much speechless, and I took a whole bunch of notes, and I don't know where to start. And one, I just, want to just being a father of two girls and having them go away to school and knowing the world in which we live and how women have a 1 in 3 chance of getting raped or sexually assaulted. I just, sorry is not appropriate, but I hope your daughter is healed or healing, and whatever you guys came up with for accountability, that it was served, because that's a hard one for anybody, but that's just a hard one for me to digest. And definitely, if there's listeners out there, there are resources out there, because for some reason, just from my role as a college nurse, only about 20% of assaults, rapes get reported. And so 80% are going free. And when you start looking at the numbers of people that this happens to, it's just wrong. And so
no, and Jazzy, I mean, it's the one thing I can say is Harlow's doing well. It's something that she's gonna obviously have to deal with kind of her whole life. But the one thing I can say is that, as parents, be willing to listen, be willing to be uncomfortable with trying to draw things out of your kids. Don't take no or I'm okay as a true indication of how they're doing. And then be smart on how you get community guidance. I mean, our family received amazing guidance on how to tackle this and how to approach things. And you have to, it stinks. It worked out perfect. And that's why my wife and I are such a great pair, is she did the emotional support and the rehabilitative efforts. I dealt with the school, the police departments, the sheriffs, and we just received really, really good guidance on how you note keep, you record keep, and most importantly, you support your kid, right? But it's you can't, a single parent that has to do both, I don't know how they do it, because I got files that are this big of all the notes that I did just to record keep what we wanted, how we wanted to document everything we needed, all the reports, all that stuff. That's not actually important. It's important for the legal side, but the emotional side. So a parent that has to deal with both sides of how do you support a kid and a woman in this kind of, I wouldn't even know, we would have sunk, put it that way.
Well, just know, listeners, there are resource, and one, again, from my role working as a nurse, Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. And it's RAIN with 2 N's, RAIN. ADDINN.org, and a phone number is 800-656-HOPE. And so there are resources out there if you should find your loved one was in one of these situations. And I really appreciate John giving us some insight on how his family handled that. And then not to just move on, but to move on to what you read and shared with the Johnson family and the impact that Aaron had on you, and how that's, played out now, whatever, 35 years, later from your time being there. And I wrote down a whole bunch of notes. And then the last thing that I wrote down, and this might not even make sense, but is home. And the reason why I put that in, knowing you a little bit, it's because you are going to make every last person feel comfortable when they're people that are speaking your language. If they're people that are wasting your time and are not treating all people right, you ain't going to give them the time of day. But that's a good person. You're going to take them home. You're going to make them feel at home. And I kept coming back to that, and you just felt at home out there.
Yep.
Probably for all the different challenges that you had in your life with moving and having to reinvent yourself and getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, and getting beat up on the park. And then you get to a place that is in the public's eye, a place where a white guy doesn't even think about going. And then you go and you're like, wait a second, this community makes me feel more welcome than anywhere else would make me feel. And then my dad gets to come be a guest coach. And it just goes to show you that connection of just listening, what you were just tying into your daughter, and really seeing each other is what this world needs. And you've lived it. And then you were so great at articulating what he's done for you, and then how you've taken that and carried it through to your whole life. And what I see reflected in the man in front of me today, who's a young 52 going on and still doing these things. But I think we're all at a point in our life where we start to think about, well, what the heck is our legacy going to be?
Yeah.
Because time doesn't stop. And we will all soon be on that bed. And can we live our life and take actions today? And hopefully we've been taking them to where when our time comes, we can have some young person come in and share the impact that you had on them. And so, yeah, I see why that makes such a big impact, because I think that's, at the end of the day, we all just want to feel a connection. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, no, it's neat for me because, we got playbooks, we got guides, we got different things that we lean on. And as I get older, I start to wonder what were those and where'd they come from? Because there's just certain things that I can't get out of who I am. And so kind of being able to go back in time and look at it. And like I said, those three kind of tenets that I gleaned are also what we've shared here it's all good for me. I mean, like I said, it's neat to be given that opportunity to do a little memory lane stuff, but then, you fast forward and just look at our country in the last, anybody that thinks what was happening with the protests and all that, if anybody that think that's new, is sorely mistaken, right? It just means that you haven't lived in our country, and you haven't seen and been exposed to inequity and prejudice, and we just got to individually and together just be good people.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I don't even know if you're aware, but that's where Mike and I and Paul Mifsud, the other part of our trio of C4 leaders, you probably haven't checked out to see what we're doing. Basically, you know, I'm a little bit crazy, a little bit off upstairs, and I went and got a pizza oven, put it on the back of a Toyota truck, and once COVID lets us, and for anybody that's just thinking Life's Essential Ingredients is just this podcast, no, it's one component of C4 Leaders. And C4 Leaders is taking action to speak to all the things that John is talking about, these inequalities, and we're going to try and build community for all people around pizza. And so this truck, we're rolling. We're bringing pizza to community. All you got to do is hit me up. Go check out c4leaders.org. It says there's a button on there that says join the movement. I'm filling up the gas tank. I make all the ingredients are fresh, and the pizza is ridiculous. And we're coming out to you. And then the cool thing is we take some of the C4 stuff, which is, you know, communication, chemistry, consistency, and creativity. And we were going to do something with UC Santa Cruz, John, at one point years ago, but you haven't even got to see what we do. But basically, we're just going to take that formula, that methodology, and bring it around this dinner. And we're going to allow all people, again, to see each other and to connect and to learn how to just work together and inspire each other. And I'm so excited for everybody to get this vaccine so we can get the truck rolling. My kids, everybody think I'm a little bit crazy, but the back of the truck has our website because I want people to know how to get in touch with me. But then the whole movement is we rise together. And so pizza obviously is cooking, but we're going out and hopefully helping all people rise to share the greatness that they have within. Yes, sir.
So I'm giggling because you made a comment about the number of dogs I've had. I'm giggling because the number of cars you've had.
I do like me a car.
Wait, you're forgetting it. The car he had, like the one like 10 cars ago, that was his last one, by the way. About 10 cars ago.
Exactly. I mean, it's a nutty, talk about a nutty mess when it comes to something. It's jazzy with cars.
Yes. Well, when you're 6'8" and you have extremely long legs and a long neck, and you want to fit into something like your old VW Rabbit, and then you realize 6 months later, hey, I'm walking around with a old crooked neck, and you realize, all right, this isn't going to work. And so I just roll into it. But yeah, you don't even want to know how many cars I've had. I don't even know how many. But somehow I bought a few more. I've been able to sell them and make money on them. I don't know how that happens. But let's get on. Let's get away from my car, whatever it is, and let's get in. You know, at this point, you know, I think it's fun for athletes because we've been trained to be pretty disciplined, to be part of something that's bigger than yourself, which is the team and developing your role, to create a routine. And we've all had the good fortune of going out and playing in front of a lot of people and getting that excitement that gets you a little bit more motivated. You're 52 now. You ain't playing in front of anybody. And there's nobody there really coaching you other than you coaching yourself. What is it that you do to get yourself going now? I know you always stay in shape, and kind of talk and share seriously though, because you're already starting to giggle a little bit. Maybe your gut's bigger than you. John was showing us his six-pack before the show, and maybe he'll show everybody.
That's why, you know what they say is when you're on a podcast and there's a video and you wear a dark shirt, it's slimming.
You do look good. Not quite as pretty as my Pasha, but you's looking good. But seriously, you know, I know you always admired you for that, because you do, or at least you did, like to have a couple cold ones, and you did like to, you know, eat some food, but you always, took care of yourself. So I don't imagine that's changing at all. So what is, at this point in your life, what's your routine? Because I am tying this into the show, life's essential ingredients. Unfortunately for us all to keep going and to try and have this legacy, we got to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
So what does that look like for John Sayers at 52?
So the first thing is, when you talk about the cold ones and the food, big time, I don't do drugs, I don't gamble, but I do order at restaurants. My Stella's 2 at a time. It's my vice. So as I've gotten older, I've got to make trade-offs. I've got to go food, beverages. So when it comes to just that area of my life, you got to think a little bit more than we did when we were in our 20s and 30s, where we're more active and our metabolisms are different. As you know, and I'm sure Mike knows this, I mean, we banged our bodies pretty good. So, my ankles, my knees, my shoulders, my elbows, my hands are all feeling the stuff and the wear and tear. And so I do exercise, but what I've done is a lot of low impact stuff, right? So I've got a bike behind me just because of COVID and being at home and health clubs being shut down. Went to Walmart, got a stand you could put your bike on and just spin in front of the TV. So I try to do that regularly. Dogs, I love walking. Absolutely love walking a dog with an audible book for 45 minutes is therapeutic and good for the soul, very low impact. And then I do a lot of what I call just physical labor on my house, deck building, yard work. So I'm trying to stay active in a way that's not going to destroy my body more than it has been. And then I'm trying to get better as I get older with moderation around, let's say, food and intake, right? And then, to me, that's kind of the bookends. Like, what do I do at night, let's say, and how do I head to bed? And then I think, to me, I'm a huge believer in being organized and being an early riser. And Mike can remember some of my visits to USF. You wind me up and you send me in the direction of a place where there might be some music or something going on, and I'm gonna try to find the last person that wants to stay out. I'm asleep by 8:30, 9 o'clock now. It just doesn't. That's kind of out of my system, so to speak, and it allows me to be up at 4:45 or 5 in the morning. I got my routine with coffee, with kind of checking out what I got on the docket for the day. And for what I do for business, I need to be in my office by 6:30-ish. And so those early morning hours to me are cherished. I can get a lot of stuff done that's reflective, planning, etc., with a fresh mind, with tons of energy. And so that's let's say what I'm up to. I manage a team of 18 people for our company on the sales and marketing side. And so, trying to balance that all with still only have one kid at home. And we're also evolving in different stages of our lives with our kids, right? They're starting to go to college. So we're starting to be able to reclaim some time. So I'm trying to find out what's a hobby, what's an interest that I now can think about doing next year, the year after, that I can get my hands into that's going to add some everything from competitiveness to kind of intrinsic value. And so I haven't thought of that yet. I may end up being the 4th or 5th member of C4. We rename it C5, and we'll just have a field day with it. But no, seriously, it's I'm in that place. So I'm listening to Shoe Dog right now, the story of Nike by Phil Knight, on a podcast, not a podcast, on an Audible book, and just his journey on how he came up with the idea and some of his exposures on what made him do what he did. Actually, talk about some essential ingredients, right? And making a choice to, move away from being a corporate accountant to kind of being a entrepreneur in your mid 20s and making it all start is pretty cool too. So that sort of vantage point at my age is neat to hear. So it gives me some excitement for, my 55 to 65 timeframe that maybe I didn't have when I was 40, 41, 42, when we're all just in the throes of raising our kids. The schedules are crazy. It's how do I keep up with the sports, with business travel, with supporting my family, et cetera. So very long answer, but there's some tools I use. There's some organization I use. I try to remain healthy, try to remain active. Friends, holy smokes. Just this is Mike, when I look at him, I get a smile out of him. I can think of like 5 or 6 times on our visits up at USF where I'm seeing that come out. Jazzy, just what you mentioned. So I realize that there's life experiences that connect us, that I don't need to meet 50 new close friends. I need to reconnect with the great people that I've had in my life. And so that's another big focus of mine, which is how do I do that? So that's my windy answer.
That's your district.
Let me jump in real quick. Wow, yeah. You're still that guy who just wind up and send in a direction, by the way. You just keep going. I love it. And I think we ask this question a lot, and I think this might be the most interesting answer we might get. But if you met someone and if you wanted to share to them what you're all about and you had to do it through one song, what song would you share to them that would kind of speak to who you are?
Pete Rock, CL Smooth, TROY. They reminisce over you. And the reason being is, number one, that song was dedicated to, there's that connection of Pete Rock and CL Smooth, the Heavy D and the Boys, and 2 dancers. And the reason why they say TROY was one of the dancers that got killed in a dancing, like he fell off stage. His name was Troy. So Pete Rock and CL Smooth made this song about they reminisce over you, but the message of the song, not only is the video dope and good, but the message, it's just about, to me, reflecting on kind of who's been there before you and what that means to you. And then the fact that they made the name that and dedicated it to their buddy was even more powerful. So that would be my answer.
That's a great answer. And I love how it took you all of about half a second to come up with it. Very nice, John.
It's a song that whenever I got a chance and I'm thinking, what do I want to listen to? It just comes to the front of my mind. And I always wonder why. It's the beat. I think it might have been only one of their 1 or 2 songs that anybody ever listened to. But then it's the message.
Yeah, and let me just, you want to reminisce about USF. I don't know if you remember, but I want to reminisce about the first time I met you. And we were down playing against USD. We're all freshmen, just trying to figure it out.
Yep.
And, my pops was like, I got this good friend down there. We're going to hang out, and we're all hyped to get down there. We're actually hyped for after the game, more so than during the game.
Yep.
We're ready for after, but since that's close to where I'm from, San Diego's close to Pedro, my parents came down and some family. So I was hanging out with them. And if you know anything about my parents, when they show up, they bring a ton of food. So they have me stacked up. So, yeah, we were doing some grubbing. But I'll never forget, you guys hung out, and you guys came back later on night, who knows what time. And I got all this food out in front. And my mom used to love to give me this sliced cheese.
Yep.
They're like 2 packs together. And I remember you come in, I barely, I've met you for 5 minutes, and you come in, you see this cheese, you grab the cheese, you go, man, I really need this cheese. I got to have this cheese. And I'm looking, and Jeff knows how I am with, the food my mom brings. It's like, you're not, I stopped talking to people at USF for coming in and taking food without asking or not being polite about it. And somehow you left there with this, and I love sliced cheese, you left there with this whole sliced cheese and had me convinced that you kind of needed it more than I did. And right away, I'm like, man, who is this guy? I love him. He's the greatest. He took my cheese. I still love him.
I actually remember that. It's funny. We all remember different things, right? So I don't actually remember the cheese, but I do remember the amount of food. I remember your mom. I remember how nice she was. And I just remember the smells going, this is no joke. This is not like a little hors d'oeuvre plate that we're going to have in a room for my son when he plays. This is like, we're going to grub up. And I wasn't always great at accommodating, like, is this yours? But when it came to good food and I could smell it, I'm like, I know I need it because it's going to be good. The fact that cheese, I'm going, I don't remember cheese, but I can remember the hotel. I can remember the doors at the hotel being open because there's a couple rooms. You guys didn't have like just one room. And so I can remember going, yeah, so that's a good memory.
Well, we won't get into all the stories. I'm definitely not going to get into this one, but we always loved us some Southside back in the day when Noon would come up and visit us in the city. But I want to get into the rest of the show. We're almost over, and we talked about this a little bit, but John Alston has a great quote that I love, and hopefully none of us is going anywhere soon, but it's been a little bit of the theme of the show. And it's the quote is this, John: the only thing you take with you when you're gone is what you leave behind. And what would you want, not to get emotional, but if you were the one laying on the bed like Aaron, what would you want to hear, and what do you want to leave behind?
Shoot. The guy that can talk is at a loss for ideas here in terms of what I would have on. Let me just think for a second. I think for me, what I would want is that people would say that in a small way that he helped make the world just a slightly better place to be in. And if some people thought that was more impactful or less impactful, that would be up for them to judge. But that, just generally speaking, if I've got a neighbor that that's retired, that lives with a sister across the street, we bring them food every Tuesday. If Roy and Mary would say, you know what, for the last 5 or 7 years, and John was was no longer here, we're just thankful that he was in our lives. So nothing huge, nothing other than just made our lives slightly better by being in it.
Man, I love that. And I love how you use the word slightly, because I really think these small little pushes, these small gestures, the little things that we think are little, you just never know how they're received. And I guarantee Ron and Mary are counting on that food, and they're sharing that my good neighbor John and Cristina bring me food on Tuesday because they care about me, and we have a sense of community. And these little things are huge. And so yeah, I'm excited because you don't know it yet. But you definitely are joining the C4 stuff, because it's just who you are. And to be honest, check out the website first, and I guarantee you'll be like, okay, I got to be part of that, because who wouldn't want to go around and serve pizza, bring some joy and happiness, and you just want to go back to your words, slightly better, and to just get back to during these events. I still don't even know what we're going to call them. We'll use that word right now. But during these events, we're just breaking bread together. We're sharing the fabric of who you are and who we are. Nobody's better or worse than anybody. Yeah. We're just there just to have this moment. And can that moment perhaps make somebody's life slightly better.
No,
That
you had me at pizza, and then you combine it with truck. It's like, and then I'm realizing this probably isn't even a podcast. This is YouTube Yo-Yo's going, how can we get him to be part of what we do? So you guys are amazing.
Wait, hey, we'll throw cold ones in too, so you're hooked.
Oh no, that's got to be appropriately done. Yes.
All right. Well, that's perfect. I'm glad we got it recorded, and so we'll be excited. And that will be one of our first stops, man. We'll bring this show to your community, and we'll rock the house. We got 50 people that we can have part of. Saying we don't want it to get too big.
Yeah.
Not that we want to exclude, but we want to make it intimate enough to where we can enjoy kind of what's going on. So yeah, we'll definitely.
I'll check it out. But if it's something that the mobile pizza truck can make it to this county, because if you think about this county, as we all have different areas, I mean, it's just such a unique place that we're right on the other side of Silicon Valley, right? And we're literally 50% Hispanic, basically 50% Anglo, and then you head down south towards Marina in that area. Pretty interesting, just socioeconomics, right? So it would be, I think, a pretty cool place to do something where you get folks to break bread. And like I said, if the goal is to do something to make things slightly better, and over time those slightlys add up, that's going to be that's my speed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. We're so hyped. And again, C4 is an explosive. It's based upon this communication, chemistry, consistency, and creativity. And last thing for you, John, and you've been amazing, is to our listeners who, again, we thank you so much for listening from all over the world. We have this process called LTF, light the fuse, and it's about taking action, which is what C4 is all about. You know, we've got this truck, we've got these great ingredients, we've got this podcast, and our LTF is us out doing our thing. We're already doing it.
Yep.
What action would you suggest to a young listener who's struggling right now? They've been dealing with this COVID. They're not going to school. Things are tough at home. What advice would you have for them to be able to weather this storm?
So I'm going to apply what I try to tell my kids and folks that I work with that are, let's say, struggling a bit just with the whole scenario we're in, right? First and foremost, without any hesitation, understand you're not alone. And that sharing your struggles or your fears or your discomfort with someone that you trust is your first step, bar none, right? And so, I would say that would be number one to me, is just take that step, raise your hand, write yourself a letter, share a letter, send an email, send a text. However you are comfortable sharing the status of yourself, don't keep it inside, get it out, right? And get it out constructively, not destructively, right? The second one is do something for yourself that's healthy. Meditate, exercise, watch a movie you like, preferably a comedy, right? Do something to get that endorphin flowing. That's not Mastella's, not food, right? Something that you generated that makes you feel good, and then repeat it. Those would be the two things. I mean, I'm no psychological expert, but I know that keeping stuff inside, not healthy. Being cooped up and not getting an endorphin out over time, not good. And so figure out ways to do both those. If you don't know how or what, ask your buddies, ask your friends what they're doing, right? You'll be amazed at what people will share, right? So that's how that'd be my 2 cents.
I love it. I love it. Pashito, we're just about wrapping this one up. You got any closing comments, and then I'll get us out of here, and that's another episode.
Blown away. Wow, John. Yeah, I'm used to just laughing when you're around because you make me laugh. That was deep. I didn't realize. I knew you were deep. I didn't know you were that deep, but I appreciate you sharing that, man. And you know what? You made my day a little bit better today. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And Mike, just you've always had it. You have an ability to is different than myself, so it's very admirable. You are present 110%, but you don't try to take over. And so you're I've always admired that about you, and just this reinforced it. So seeing that again was damn cool. It was damn cool.
Man, that's why he's so good. And you hit that right on the head. I couldn't have said that any better. And Mike and I talk every day, and he is one of the best listeners that I've ever met. And yeah, so thank you for that, Pasho. Noon, man, it was what a great visit. Hopefully you feel I feel amazing just getting to see you, getting to listen to you, hearing the impact of the people that have impacted your life, and then you sharing that and transferring it to others to make their life slightly better. And this was an amazing show, and I thank you so much for coming on.
Greatly appreciated, and it was an honor, man, for sure. There's no doubt about it.
Nice. All right. Well, this was another episode of Life's Essential Ingredients. We had my good friend, John Claudius Sayers IV, who's doing amazing work for Superior Foods down in the Aptos, Watsonville area of California. My Pasho, you were amazing today, as usual. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I need to do a better job of saying that. Thank you. Please hit us up at Jeff at C4 Leaders if there's any guests that you would like to have on the show, any topics. Again, this podcast is for us to focus on life's essential ingredients. And that means we want to hear from everybody because we feel everybody has a gift to share with the world to make it, as John Sayers would say, slightly better. And with that, we're out. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you next week.